It was a sunny Saturday afternoon at the Renaissance Fair, and the place was packed with people dressed in old-time costumes. Kids were running around with wooden swords, parents were taking pictures, and the smell of roasted turkey legs filled the air. Among all this chaos, a little 5-year-old girl had somehow gotten separated from her mom and dad. She was wearing a tiny princess dress that her grandmother had made for her, and her face was streaked with tears. The fair had seemed so magical just minutes ago, but now everything looked scary and unfamiliar. She tried to remember which way her parents had gone, but every path looked the same. The crowds of people seemed to tower over her like giants. That's when she bumped straight into what she thought was a real giant. He was the tallest man she'd ever seen, standing at 6 feet 8 inches with a long red beard and dressed in full Viking costume. He had a fur cloak, leather armor, and a huge wooden shield strapped to his back. To a 5-year-old, he looked like he'd stepped right out of a storybook. The big Viking noticed the little girl immediately. His name was Lars, and he was 28 years old. He worked as a carpenter during the week, but on weekends he loved coming to the Renaissance Fair to teach kids about Viking history. He had a gentle soul despite his intimidating appearance, and seeing the crying child made his heart ache. Lars knelt down on one knee, which brought him closer to the little girl's height. "Hey there, little one," he said in a soft voice that didn't match his warrior appearance at all. "Are you lost?" The girl nodded, her bottom lip trembling. Lars reached into his leather pouch and pulled out a small wooden sword he'd carved himself. "You know what? A brave warrior never cries. Here, take this magic sword. It'll protect you while we find your family." The little girl took the wooden sword with both hands, her tears slowing down as she examined the gift. It had beautiful carvings of dragons on the handle. "Is it really magic?" she asked, sniffling. Lars nodded seriously. "Very magic. In fact, it works better if you're smiling. Can you try that for me?" A small smile broke through her tears, and Lars grinned back. "There we go. Now, what's your name, little warrior?" She told him her name was Lily. Lars stood up and offered her his hand. "Well, Lily, how about we go on a quest to find your parents? But first, would you like to ride on my shoulders? You'll be able to see much better from up there, and you can use your magic sword to point the way." Lily's eyes went wide with excitement, and she nodded eagerly. Lars carefully lifted her up onto his broad shoulders, making sure she was secure. From up there, Lily felt like she was on top of the world. She could see everything: the colorful tents, the jugglers, the people in costumes. She stopped crying completely, and even started giggling when Lars pretended to be searching for dragons instead of parents. They walked through the fair like that for about 15 minutes, with Lars asking her questions to keep her calm and distracted. He asked about her favorite color, her favorite food, whether she had any pets. Lily told him all about her goldfish named Bubbles and how she wanted a puppy for her birthday. Lars listened to every word like it was the most important thing he'd ever heard. Meanwhile, Lily's parents were frantically searching for their daughter. Her mother was nearly in tears, and her father was asking every fair worker if they'd seen a little girl in a princess dress. They were about to ask the security to make an announcement, when they heard a familiar giggle coming from nearby. There was Lily, perched on the shoulders of a giant Viking, using her wooden sword to fight off imaginary dragons. She looked happier than she'd been all day. Her parents rushed over, relief flooding their faces. Lily's mother had tears streaming down her cheeks as she reached up for her daughter. "Lily, oh thank God," her mother cried. Lars carefully lifted Lily down and handed her to her parents. "She's quite brave, this one," Lars said with a warm smile. "Found her near the main tent. She was a bit scared, but we went on a dragon hunt and she did great." Lily's father shook Lars's hand firmly, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much. We can't tell you how grateful we are. She just wandered off while we were watching the jousting match. One second she was there, the next—" He trailed off, not wanting to think about what could have happened. Lars waved off their thanks. "I'm just glad she's safe. That's what matters." He started to turn away, but Lily pulled on his fur cloak. "Wait," she said. Lars turned back, crouching down to her level one more time. Lily looked at him with complete seriousness in her big blue eyes, clutching her wooden sword. "I'm going to marry you when I grow up," she declared with the absolute certainty that only a 5-year-old can have. Her parents laughed, thinking it was just adorable childhood talk. Lars chuckled warmly, his eyes crinkling with amusement. He placed a gentle hand on her head. "Well then, little shield maiden, I guess I'll have to wait for you. he said, playing along. You better grow up strong and brave. Lily nodded seriously as if they'd just made the most important agreement in the world. Her mother smiled apologetically at Lars. I'm so sorry. Kids say the funniest things. But her father, still overwhelmed with gratitude, pulled out his phone. Please, can we at least get your contact information? We'd love to send you something to thank you properly. Maybe she can send you a thank you card? Lars hesitated for a moment, then figured why not. It would make the little girl happy, and he loved getting drawings from kids. He wrote down his email address on a piece of paper from his pouch. No need to send anything fancy, he said. But if Lily wants to draw me a picture sometime, I'd love that. As they said their goodbyes, Lily kept waving her wooden sword at Lars until he disappeared into the crowd. She held onto that sword for the rest of the day, telling everyone who would listen about the Viking who saved her from getting lost and promised to wait for her to grow up. What nobody expected, not Lily's parents, not Lars, not even little Lily herself, was that this chance meeting at a Renaissance fair would turn into something much more than just a sweet childhood memory. Sometimes the promises we make, even the silly ones, have a funny way of coming true in the most unexpected ways. That night, as Lily's mother tucked her into bed, the little girl was still clutching her wooden sword. Mommy, she said sleepily, do you think Lars is real or make-believe? Her mother smiled and kissed her forehead. He's real, sweetie. Very real. Lily smiled and closed her eyes, dreaming of Vikings and dragons and a promise she'd made that she wouldn't forget. 2 weeks after the Renaissance fair, a small envelope arrived at Lars's apartment. He recognized the return address. It was from Lily's family. Inside was a crayon drawing that made him smile from ear to ear. It showed a giant stick figure with a red beard standing next to a tiny stick figure holding a sword. Above them, Lily had written in wobbly letters, "Thank you, Lars. You are my hero." Lars was so touched that he put the drawing on his refrigerator. That same evening, he sat down at his kitchen table and wrote Lily a letter back. He kept it simple and fun, drawing little Vikings in the margins and telling her a short story about a brave shield maiden who protected her village from a dragon. He signed it, "Your friend Lars the Viking," and mailed it the next day. He didn't really expect to hear back again. After all, kids that age have short attention spans. But 3 weeks later, another letter arrived. This time Lily had drawn him fighting a dragon, and she'd written about her first day of kindergarten. Her mother had added a small note at the bottom. "Thank you for writing back. Lily was so excited to get your letter that she's been checking the mailbox every single day." And so, without anyone really planning it, a friendship was born. It wasn't something Lars had ever experienced before, being pen pals with a 5-year-old. But there was something pure and joyful about Lily's letters that brightened his days. She wrote about her goldfish, her dreams, her fears about the dark, and her excitement about learning to read. Lars wrote back about his carpentry projects, the birds he saw outside his workshop, and more Viking stories that he made up just for her. Lily's parents were careful, of course. They read every letter that came and went, but they could see that Lars was genuinely kind. His letters were always appropriate, encouraging, and sweet. He never asked weird questions or tried to arrange meetings. He was just a nice guy who happened to care about making a little girl smile. As the months turned into years, the letters kept coming. When Lily turned 6, Lars sent her a hand-carved wooden bookmark with her name burned into it. When she turned 7 and lost her first tooth, he sent her a card with a story about how Vikings believed tooth fairies were actually tiny shield maidens collecting teeth to build magical armor. Lily's father sometimes joked with his wife, "You know, this is the strangest friendship I've ever seen. But somehow it works." Her mother agreed. They'd even talked to Lars on the phone a few times when dropping off or picking up letters, and he was always respectful and kind. He asked about their lives too, never making it weird or crossing boundaries. When Lily turned 8, something shifted slightly in their correspondence. Her letters became more thoughtful. She started asking Lars questions about life, not just telling him stories. "Why are some kids mean at school?" she wrote once. "How do you know what you want to be when you grow up? Do you ever feel lonely?" Lars took these questions seriously. He wrote back honest but age-appropriate answers, sharing his own experiences with bullying when he was young because of his height, talking about how he discovered his love for working with wood, and admitting that yes, sometimes he did feel lonely. But that's when he would work on his projects or volunteer at schools to teach kids about history. By the time Lily was 10, their letters had become longer and more substantial. She wrote about struggling with math, about her best friend moving away, about feeling like she didn't fit in with other girls her age who only wanted to talk about makeup and boys. Lars encouraged her to be herself, to embrace what made her different, and reminded her that the best people in life are often the ones who don't quite fit the mold. Lily's parents watched this friendship with amazement. Their daughter had grown into a confident, thoughtful child, and they couldn't deny that Lars had played a role in that. He was like a distant uncle or family friend, someone who provided a different perspective and unwavering support. On Lily's 11th birthday, Lars sent her something special, a hand-carved wooden box with intricate Norse designs. Inside was a letter that said, "You're growing up so fast, little shield maiden. This box is for keeping your important things, your dreams, your secrets, your treasures. Always remember that you're braver than you think," Lily cried when she opened it. Not sad tears, but the kind of tears that come when you feel truly seen and valued. She wrote back immediately, telling Lars that he was one of the most important people in her life even though they'd only met once. She still remembered that day at the fair, still had the wooden sword he'd given her, and still meant what she'd said about marrying him when she grew up, though now, at 11, she added with embarrassment, "I know that was silly kid stuff, but you'll always be special to me." Lars kept every single one of Lily's letters in a wooden box he'd made specifically for them. Sometimes on quiet evenings he'd read through them and marvel at how this little girl had grown. He'd watched her handwriting improve, her vocabulary expand, her thoughts deepen. In a way, he'd been privileged to witness her childhood from a unique perspective. When Lily turned 13, she asked her parents if Lars could video call for her birthday. They agreed, and it was the first time they'd seen each other face to face since that day at the fair 8 years ago. Lily was now a teenager, and Lars was 41, his red beard now streaked with gray. "You got old," Lily teased when she saw him on the screen. Lars laughed. "And you got tall. You're not that tiny princess anymore." They talked for almost an hour, and it felt natural, like old friends catching up. Lily's parents sat nearby, listening and smiling. This was definitely unusual, but it was also beautiful in its own way. After that, video calls became a monthly thing. Lars was always careful to keep things appropriate, always asked how Lily's parents were doing, always made sure they knew they were welcome to join the conversation anytime. He became something like a mentor figure, someone Lily could talk to about things she felt awkward discussing with her parents. When Lily was 14 and dealing with her first real heartbreak after a boy at school asked her to a dance and then canceled, Lars was there with words of wisdom. "The right person will see your worth and never make you feel like a second choice," he told her. "You deserve someone who's sure about you." Lily's mother, overhearing this conversation, later told her husband, "That man has given our daughter better advice about relationships than half the adults I know." Her father nodded thoughtfully. "He really cares about her, doesn't he? Not in a creepy way, but like he genuinely wants her to grow up happy and healthy." As Lily approached 15, she told Lars about her growing interest in history and anthropology. She'd been doing research projects on Viking culture for school, partly inspired by their long friendship. Lars encouraged her passion, sending her book recommendations and sharing stories about actual historical facts versus the myths people believed. Nobody talked about that childhood promise anymore. It seemed like a sweet but forgotten memory, something to smile about but not take seriously. But Lily never forgot it. She kept that wooden sword on her bookshelf, and sometimes, when she was alone, she'd look at it and wonder what Lars thought when he remembered that day. Did he ever think about her the way she sometimes thought about him? The friendship that had started with a scared 5-year-old and a kind stranger had grown into something neither of them could have predicted. It wasn't normal, it wasn't conventional, but it was real, and it was about to become something even more unexpected as Lily grew older and started understanding her own heart better. High school changed Lily in ways she didn't expect. While other girls her age were obsessing over pop stars and actors, Lily found herself thinking about someone else entirely. She tried dating a few boys from school, but something always felt off. They seemed so immature, so focused on superficial things. None of them wanted to talk about history or philosophy or the things that actually mattered to her. By the time she was 16, Lily started to realize something that both excited and scared her. The feelings she had for Lars weren't just friendship anymore. They'd grown into something deeper, something she didn't quite know how to handle. She'd never stopped thinking about that promise she'd made as a 5-year-old, but now it didn't feel like kid stuff anymore. It felt real. Her best friend Katie was the first person she told. They were sitting in Lily's room doing homework when it just spilled out. "I think I'm in love with Lars," Lily said quietly, not looking up from her textbook.
Katie dropped her pen.
"The Viking guy? The one you write letters to? Lily, he's like old. How old is he even?" "He's 44, Lily said defensively. "And age is just a number." But even as she said it, she knew how it sounded. Katie looked concerned. "Lily, that's a huge age gap. And haven't you only met him once? When you were 5. Lily felt tears prickling her eyes. "You don't understand. We've been talking for 11 years. He knows me better than anyone. He's kind and smart, and he actually listens to me." Katie softened, seeing how upset her friend was. "I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't want you to get hurt. Does he know how you feel?" Lily shook her head. "Of course not. And I'm not going to tell him. I'm not stupid. I know he probably just sees me as a kid, but I can't help how I feel." The thing was, Lily's feelings weren't some superficial crush. They'd developed over years of meaningful conversation, shared thoughts, and genuine connection. Lars had been there for every important moment of her teenage years, offering guidance without judgment, support without strings attached. He'd helped shape who she was becoming as a person. But Lily was smart enough to know that she needed to keep these feelings to herself, at least for now. She was still in high school, still living with her parents, still figuring out who she was. So she continued their monthly video calls and regular messages, acting like everything was normal, even though her heart raced every time she saw his name pop up on her phone. Lars, for his part, had noticed that Lily was growing up fast. She was becoming an impressive young woman, intelligent, articulate, and thoughtful beyond her years. But to him, she was still the little girl he'd helped at the fair. He never allowed his mind to wander in any inappropriate direction. Their friendship was precious to him, and he guarded it carefully. When Lily turned 17, she started applying to colleges. She chose to focus on anthropology and medieval studies, no longer pretending that Lars hadn't influenced this decision. Her parents supported her choice even though they knew where the interest had started. "At least something good came from that day at the fair," her father joked. One evening during a video call, Lars asked Lily about her college plans. She told him she'd been accepted to several schools and was trying to decide. "What matters most to you?" he asked. "The program quality? The location? The campus culture?" Lily thought for a moment before answering honestly. "I want to go somewhere that'll help me become the person I'm meant to be." Lars smiled warmly. "You're already becoming that person, Lily. College will just help you along the way. I'm proud of you, you know that?" Those words meant more to Lily than her acceptance letters. She blinked back tears and smiled at the screen. "Thank you. For everything. For being there all these years." During her senior year, Lily made a decision. After she graduated high school, after she turned 18, she was going to tell Lars how she felt. Not in a dramatic confession, but just honestly. She'd spent years thinking about this, and she was tired of hiding her heart. The worst that could happen is he'd gently let her down, and they'd remain friends. At least she'd know. Her mother noticed something different about Lily in those last months of high school. She seemed more focused, more determined, like she was working toward something specific. One night, Lily's mother came into her room to talk. "Honey, can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest with me." Lily looked up from her laptop nervously. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed. "You're not dating anyone. You haven't really dated much at all. Is everything okay? I mean, is there someone you like?" Lily's heart pounded. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading. She could lie, but she was tired of hiding. "Mom, promise you won't freak out," Lily said carefully. Her mother's expression became concerned. "What is it, sweetie?" Lily took a deep breath. "I have feelings for Lars, real feelings, not just friendship." The room went silent for what felt like an eternity. Her mother's face went through several emotions: surprise, confusion, concern, and finally, something softer. "How long have you felt this way?" she asked quietly. Lily shrugged. "I don't know exactly. It's been building for years, I guess. I know what you're thinking. I know he's older. I know it's weird. But Mom, he's been more real with me than any guy my age has ever been. To Lily's surprise, her mother didn't explode or forbid her from talking to Lars anymore. Instead, she sighed deeply. Your father and I have wondered about this. We've watched your friendship with Lars for 12 years now. We've seen how much he cares about you, how careful he's been with appropriate boundaries. But Lily, you need to understand something. Even if your feelings are real, that doesn't mean Lars feels the same way. And even if he did, he would probably never act on it because of your age. I'm almost 18, Lily protested. Her mother held up a hand. I know, but you're still in high school. You're still our daughter living under our roof. And more importantly, Lars is a good man. If he has any feelings for you beyond friendship, which I honestly doubt, he would wait until you're older and more established before ever acknowledging them. That's what good men do. Lily felt tears streaming down her face. So what am I supposed to do? Just pretend I don't feel this way? Her mother pulled her into a hug. No, honey, I'm not saying that. I'm saying be patient. Focus on graduating, go to college, grow into yourself. If what you feel is real and not just teenage emotions, it'll still be there in a few years. And if Lars ever feels the same way, which is a big if, time will reveal that too. Her father was less calm when her mother told him later that night. She has feelings for Lars? The Viking guy? He's old enough to be her father. But her mother reminded him of something important. He's never done anything inappropriate. Not once in 12 years. He's never tried to meet up with her alone, never said anything creepy, never crossed a single line. If anything, he's been a better influence on her than half the actual fathers I know. The conversation ended with an agreement. They wouldn't stop Lily from continuing her friendship with Lars, but they'd be watching more carefully. And if Lars ever gave them a single reason to worry, they'd end it immediately. But deep down, both parents knew that wasn't going to happen. Lars was too decent for that. At her high school graduation, Lily stood on stage receiving her diploma and saw her parents in the crowd cheering. For a moment, she let herself imagine Lars there too, proud and smiling. That night, she got a video message from him congratulating her. You did it, Shield Maiden, he said with genuine pride in his voice. I knew you would. Lily watched that video message 3 times before bed, studying his face, wondering if there was any chance he could ever see her as more than the little girl he'd helped at a fair 17 years ago. Summer was ahead, then college, then the rest of her life. She was 18 now. Everything was about to change. The summer after graduation felt different to Lily. She was 18 now, legally an adult, and about to start college in the fall. She'd spent the past few months working at a local bookstore, saving money and trying to figure out how to tell Lars what she'd been feeling for years. Every time she thought she'd built up enough courage, she'd chicken out. Then one afternoon in late July, her mother came into her room with an interesting proposition. Your father and I have been talking, she said, sitting on Lily's bed. The Renaissance Fair is next weekend. The same one where you met Lars. We were thinking maybe we should all go together. You haven't been back since you were 5, and it might be fun. Plus, Lars will be there like he is every year. Lily's heart stopped. See Lars in person? After 13 years? She'd been a child last time they'd met face to face. Now she was an adult. Everything was different. Are you serious? She asked, her voice shaking. Her mother nodded. We figured it's time. You're 18 now. You're about to go off to college. If you're going to maintain this friendship with Lars, it should be as an adult. Let's see how it feels when you're actually around each other. The week leading up to the fair was torture for Lily. She changed outfits 15 times, practiced what she'd say, and had multiple panic attacks. Katie came over to help calm her down. Just be yourself, her friend advised. If he's really as great as you say he is, he'll like you for who you are. But Lily couldn't shake her nerves. What if seeing him in person ruined everything? What if the connection they had online didn't translate to real life? Saturday morning arrived sunny and clear. Lily wore a simple summer dress. Nothing too fancy, but nice enough to show she'd put in effort. Her hands were shaking as they drove to the fairgrounds. Her father kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror with concern. You okay back there, kiddo? She nodded, not trusting her voice. When they arrived at the fair, the sights and sounds brought back memories Lily didn't even know she had. The smell of roasted nuts, the sound of medieval music, the colorful flags waving in the breeze. Her parents walked beside her, heading toward the Viking encampment where Lars spent his weekends teaching kids about Norse history. And then Lily saw him. After 13 years, there he was, tall as ever, his red beard now heavily streaked with silver, wearing his Viking costume and demonstrating how to make rope to a group of fascinated children. He was 45 now, but he still had that same gentle presence she remembered from when she was 5. Lars looked up and saw them approaching. For a moment, his face showed confusion. Then recognition dawned. His eyes went wide. "Lily?" he said, standing up from where he'd been crouching with the kids. She nodded, suddenly unable to speak. He looked at her like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. "You're all grown up," he said softly, and there was something in his voice that Lily couldn't quite identify. Surprise, admiration, something else? Her parents stayed back a bit, giving them space but still clearly present. Lars seemed to remember himself and smiled warmly. "It's so good to see you. All of you," he added, nodding to her parents. The initial awkwardness faded quickly. They walked around the fair together, and Lily was relieved to find that talking to Lars in person felt just as natural as their video calls. He was funny, kind, and genuinely interested in everything she had to say. He asked about her college plans, her dreams, her hopes for the future. And he listened, really listened in a way most people didn't. At one point, they stopped to watch a sword-fighting demonstration. Lily's parents wandered off to get food, leaving them alone for the first time. Lars glanced at her, and Lily caught something in his expression she'd never seen before. He looked almost nervous. "I have to say, Lily, I'm having a hard time reconciling the little girl I met 13 years ago with the woman standing next to me now." Lily felt her cheeks flush. "Is that a bad thing?" Lars shook his head quickly. "No, not bad, just unexpected. You've grown into an impressive person. Your parents should be proud." There was something he wasn't saying. Lily could feel it. The air between them felt charged with unspoken words. "Lars," Lily started, her heart pounding. "Can I ask you something?" He turned to face her fully, his expression open. "Of course, anything." She took a deep breath, gathering courage. "Do you remember what I said to you that day we met? When I was 5? A flicker of something passed across his face. Recognition, maybe amusement, maybe something more complicated. "You said you'd marry me when you grew up," he said softly, and the way he said it made Lily's breath catch. It wasn't dismissive or teasing. It was careful, measured, like he was walking on fragile ground. She nodded. "I know it was silly kid stuff, but Lars, I need you to know, I never forgot. And I never stopped meaning it." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Lars's expression went through several changes. Surprise, confusion, conflict, and something that looked almost like pain. He ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up in a way that would have been funny in any other situation. "Lily," he finally said, his voice rough. "You don't know what you're saying." "I'm 18, she said firmly. "I'm an adult. I know my own mind, and I know how I feel about you." Lars looked away, his jaw clenched. When he looked back, his eyes were filled with emotions Lily couldn't fully read. "Even if, and I'm not saying this is the case, but even if I had feelings for you beyond friendship, I would never act on them." "Do you understand why?" Lily felt tears prickling her eyes. "Because of my age. Because of how we met. Because people would judge." Lars shook his head. "No. Well, yes, those things matter. But more than that, because I care about you too much to rush anything or take advantage of your trust. Lily, you're about to start college. You're about to experience so much of life. The last thing you need is some old Viking holding you back." "You're not old," Lily protested, "and you wouldn't be holding me back. You've been pushing me forward my whole life." Lars smiled sadly. "That's not how the world will see it. And more importantly, that's not how I see it. If your feelings are real, and I'm not dismissing them, they'll still be real in a few years. After you've had time to experience college, meet people your own age, live your life without me influencing your decisions." "So you're saying there's a chance?" Lily asked, her voice small. Lars looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the internal struggle playing out on his face. "I'm saying," he finally responded, "that I value our friendship too much to ruin it with complicated feelings neither of us is ready to deal with. I'm saying you deserve time to grow and explore without feeling tied to promises you made as a child. And I'm saying that if in a few years, when you've established yourself and lived your life, if you still feel the same way, then maybe we can talk about it." It wasn't the answer Lily had hoped for, but it wasn't a rejection either. It was something in between, an acknowledgement that something existed between them, but also a recognition that timing mattered. Before she could respond, her parents returned with food, and the moment was broken. The rest of the day was bittersweet. Lily felt like she was seeing Lars with new eyes, noticing things she hadn't paid attention to during video calls. The way he smiled at kids who approached him with questions, the competence and skill with which he demonstrated his woodworking, the respect other fair workers showed him. He was a good man, and that made everything harder. When it was time to leave, Lars walked them to their car. He gave Lily's parents warm handshakes and thanked them for coming. Then he turned to Lily. For a moment they just looked at each other, years of letters and calls and shared moments passing between them silently. "Stay in touch, Shield Maiden," he said softly. "Let me know how college goes." Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. As they drove away, she watched Lars in the side mirror until he disappeared from view. Her mother reached back and squeezed her hand. "You okay, honey?" Lily wiped tears from her eyes. "I will be." He didn't say no. He just said not yet. Her father cleared his throat from the driver's seat. "That man has more integrity than most people I've met. He's putting your well-being above his own feelings, whatever those might be." That night, Lily got a message from Lars. It was short but meaningful. "Today reminded me why our friendship has always been special. Thank you for growing up to be exactly who you are. I'm proud of you." Lily read it a dozen times, analyzing every word, looking for hidden meanings. The summer was ending, college was approaching, and everything had changed. But somehow nothing had changed at all. The promise she'd made as a 5-year-old was still there, hanging in the air between them, waiting to see what time would make of it. College hit Lily like a tidal wave. The university she'd chosen was 3 states away from home, with an excellent anthropology program focusing on medieval Scandinavian culture. She'd picked it partly because of the academics and partly because she needed distance from everything, including Lars, to figure out who she really was. The first few weeks were overwhelming. New classes, new people, new environment. Lily's roommate was a bubbly girl named Rachel, who seemed to make friends effortlessly. "You need to come out more," Rachel would say, dragging Lily to parties and social events. "College is about experiences, not just studying." But Lily found it hard to connect with people her own age. Their conversations felt shallow compared to what she was used to. She kept in touch with Lars, but less frequently now. Between her heavy course load and trying to find her place on campus, the monthly video calls became every other month, then quarterly. The long messages became short texts. "How are classes?" "Good, busy, you?" It felt like they were drifting, and part of Lily wondered if that's what Lars wanted. Maybe he thought distance would make her feelings fade. During her first winter break, Lily came home for the holidays. Her parents noticed she seemed different, quieter, more withdrawn. Her mother found her crying in her room one night. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Lily wiped her eyes. "I don't fit in at college. Everyone there is so normal. They care about normal things, and I feel like I'm losing my connection with Lars. We barely talk anymore." Her mother sat beside her. "Honey, maybe that's not a bad thing. You need to build your own life, separate from a friendship that's been shaping you since you were 5. Lily shook her head. "You don't understand. Lars isn't holding me back. Without him, I feel lost. He's been my anchor for so long." Her mother's expression softened with concern. "That's exactly the problem, Lily. You're 20 years old. You shouldn't need an anchor. You should be discovering yourself." Back at school for her second semester, Lily made more of an effort to engage. She joined the medieval history club and actually enjoyed it. She went on a few dates with guys from her classes. Nothing serious, just testing the waters. One guy, Daniel, was particularly nice. He was studying archaeology and shared her passion for history. They spent hours in the library together, studying and talking. Daniel asked her out properly after they'd known each other for a month. "There's a concert this weekend. Want to go?" Lily agreed, and for a few hours at that concert she felt normal. She felt like a regular college student having a regular experience. Daniel held her hand and it was nice. Not earth-shattering, not what she felt when she thought about Lars, but nice. They dated for 2 months. Daniel was sweet and age-appropriate and everything Lily thought she should want. But every time he kissed her, she felt guilty, like she was betraying something. Katie, who video called regularly, told her bluntly, "You can't live your life waiting for a maybe, Lily. Lars told you to experience college, so experience it." But it was easier said than done. The relationship with Daniel ended amicably when he realized Lily's heart wasn't fully in it. "There's someone else, isn't there?" he asked. Lily couldn't lie. "Sort of. It's complicated." Daniel nodded, looking sad but understanding. "I hope it works out for you, whoever he is. But Lily, you deserve to be with someone who's available, not someone who's keeping you in limbo." Those words hit hard. Was that what Lars was doing? Keeping her in limbo? During her next video call with him, the first one in almost 6 months, she brought it up. "Lars, I need to know something. When you told me to wait to experience life, did you mean it? Or were you just letting me down easy?" The question clearly caught him off guard. His expression on the screen shifted from surprise to something more vulnerable. "I meant it," he said quietly. "Lily, you're brilliant and beautiful, and you have your whole life ahead of you. I'm not keeping you in limbo, I'm trying to not be selfish. If I encouraged your feelings right now, what would that do to your college experience? You'd spend all your time thinking about me instead of building your own future." Lily felt tears welling up. "But what if I can't stop thinking about you anyway?" Lars looked pained. "Then I'm sorry. That was never my intention. Our friendship was supposed to help you, not hurt you." There was a long pause before he continued. "Maybe we need more distance. Maybe these calls are making it harder for you to move forward." Lily's heart clenched. "Is that what you want?" Lars shook his head. "No, but it might be what's best for you." They didn't video call again for a year after that. The silence was deafening. Lily threw herself into her studies, determined to prove she could be fine without him. She became one of the top students in her program, earned a research position with a professor studying Viking trade routes, and even presented at an undergraduate conference. She dated a couple more guys, went to parties, made friends. From the outside, she looked like she was thriving. But at night, alone in her dorm room, she'd look at that wooden sword Lars had given her when she was 5. She'd kept it all these years, brought it to college like a talisman. Sometimes she'd hold it and wonder if she was being stupid, holding on to a childhood promise. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe she needed to let go and move on. During her junior year, Lily's professor recommended her for a summer research program in Norway, studying Viking-age settlements. It was an incredible opportunity, one that would set her up perfectly for graduate school applications. The program was intense but amazing, working on actual archaeological sites, handling artifacts that were over 1,000 years old, learning from experts in her field. One evening, after a particularly exciting day where they'd uncovered a well-preserved wooden artifact, Lily found herself thinking about Lars. Without overthinking it, she sent him a message, the first one she'd initiated in over a year. "I'm in Norway, working on a Viking-age site. Thought you'd appreciate the irony." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. His response came an hour later. "That's incredible, Lily. I always knew you'd do amazing things. How is it?" And just like that, they were talking again. Not with the same intensity as before, but with an ease that felt natural. Over the next few weeks in Norway, they exchanged messages about her work, about his new woodworking projects, about life in general. Lily realized something important during that summer in Norway. Her feelings for Lars hadn't faded. If anything, they'd deepened. But she'd also grown into herself. She'd proven she could thrive independently, build her own accomplishments, create her own identity separate from their friendship. She was no longer that college freshman who felt lost without him. She was 21 now, established in her field, confident in who she was. When she returned home at the end of summer, tanned and confident and full of stories, her parents barely recognized her. "You look happy," her father said, hugging her tight. "Really happy. Not the fake happy you were trying to project before?" Lily smiled. "I am happy. I figured some things out." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "Does this have anything to do with a certain Viking?" Lily laughed. "Maybe, but also with me. I needed to become someone I was proud of before I could figure out the rest." She had 1 more year of college left, then graduate school if she chose that path. Lars was 48 now. The age gap that seemed impossible when she was 18 felt less daunting now that she was 21 and had her own achievements and identity. That night, she video-called Lars. When he answered, his face lit up in a way she'd never quite seen before. "Norway agrees with you," he said. "You look amazing," Lily blushed. "I feel amazing. Lars, I've been thinking about what you said. About waiting, about experiencing life. I think I understand now what you meant. He leaned forward, paying close attention. You wanted me to become my own person. Lily continued. Not just the girl who wrote you letters, not just someone defined by our friendship. You wanted me to have accomplishments that were mine, experiences that were mine, a life that was mine. And I do now. I have all of that. Lars nodded slowly, his expression soft. I'm proud of you, Lily. I always knew you had it in you. I'm almost done with college, she said carefully. One more year. And then can we talk? Really talk? Lars was quiet for a moment, and Lily could see the conflict on his face. That same struggle she'd seen at the fair 3 years ago. Finally, he spoke. When you graduate, if you still feel the same way, yes, we can talk. Really talk. Lily's senior year of college felt different from the start. She had a clear purpose now. Finish strong, apply to graduate programs, and keep the promise she'd made both as a 5-year-old and as a 21-year-old woman. She and Lars were back in regular contact, video calling monthly and messaging weekly. The conversations felt different now, charged with possibility instead of uncertainty. But life had a way of throwing curveballs when you least expected them. In October, Lars called her unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon. Lily answered, surprised to see his name lighting up her phone. Hey, is everything okay? He never called during the week. His face on the screen looked tired, older somehow. Lily, I need to tell you something. I didn't want you to hear it from anyone else or through social media. Lily's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Are you sick? Lars shook his head. No, nothing like that. But there's a woman, someone I work with. Her name is Helen. She's been asking me to coffee for months, and I kept saying no because... He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Because of me? Lily finished, her voice small. Lars nodded. But Lily, you're in college. You have a whole life ahead of you. I can't keep waiting for something that might never happen. So I said yes. We've been on a few dates. The world tilted. Lily had spent 3 years becoming someone worthy of Lars's attention. And now he was dating someone else? Do you like her? She managed to ask. Lars looked conflicted. She's nice, age-appropriate, we have things in common. But I wanted you to know because we've always been honest with each other. I don't want to hurt you, but I also can't put my life on hold forever. After they hung up, Lily cried harder than she had in years. Her roommate Rachel found her curled up on her bed, mascara running down her face. He's dating someone, Lily sobbed. After everything, after making me wait and grow up and become my own person, he's dating someone else. Rachel hugged her friend tight. Then show him what he's losing. Or better yet, show him what you've become. The next few months were torture. Lars would mention Helen occasionally in their conversations. How she was teaching him to cook better. How they'd gone to a concert together. How her kids from a previous marriage were sweet. Helen had kids. She was 42, divorced, and apparently everything an adult man should want. Lily felt like she was losing something she'd never actually had. Katie called her one night after Lily had drunk texted her a series of sad messages. Okay, real talk time, Katie said bluntly. Are you going to spend your whole life pining after this guy? Because if he's really into this Helen woman, maybe it's time to actually move on. Not just say you're moving on, but actually do it. Lily knew her friend was right, but knowing something and feeling it were two different things. Then, in February, something shifted. Lars called looking upset. Helen and I broke up, he said without preamble. Lily's heart jumped. What happened? Lars ran a hand through his beard. She wanted to get serious, wanted me to meet her kids properly, start planning a future together. And I couldn't do it. Every time I tried to imagine a future with her, I just couldn't see it. She asked me if there was someone else, and I couldn't lie to her. I told her about you. Lily's breath caught. What did you tell her? Lars looked directly at the camera, his eyes intense. I told her about a little girl I met at a fair 17 years ago who promised to marry me. I told her how that little girl grew up to be the most remarkable woman I've ever known. I told her that no matter how hard I tried to move on, I couldn't stop thinking about you. And that wasn't fair to her or to anyone else I might try to date. Lars, Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm graduating in 3 months. I've been accepted to graduate programs. I have job offers. I'm my own person now, separate from you. And I still feel the same way I did when I was 5 years old. Actually, I feel it more because now I understand what it means. Lars looked pained. But Lily, I'm 48. You're 22. What kind of life could we have together? The kind we choose, Lily said firmly. Lars, I'm not asking for permission from society or from anyone else. I'm asking you, do you have feelings for me? Real feelings? The silence stretched between them, heavy with 17 years of history. Finally, Lars spoke, his voice rough with emotion. Yes, God help me, yes. I've been fighting it for years, telling myself it was wrong, that you deserved better, that the age gap was too much. But yes, Lily, I have feelings for you. They talked for 3 hours that night, laying everything bare. Lars confessed that he'd started having complicated feelings for her around the time she turned 20, but had been terrified to acknowledge them. He dated Helen to try to prove to himself that he could be normal, have a regular relationship with an age-appropriate woman, but it hadn't worked because none of those women were Lily. Lily told him about the guys she'd dated in college, how none of them measured up because they didn't have his depth, his kindness, his way of really seeing her. She told him about the year of silence between them, and how it had been the hardest year of her life but also the most important, because it forced her to become independent. They talked about the risks, the challenges, what people would say, what her parents would think. We need to do this right, Lars finally said. If we're going to try this, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but if we're going to try, we need to wait until after you graduate. You need to finish college without this complicating things, and we need to tell your parents in person, together, and get their blessing. I won't sneak around or make you hide something that's important to you. Lily agreed, even though waiting another 3 months felt impossible. They decided to keep their feelings private until graduation, to continue their friendship publicly, while privately exploring what their relationship could become. It was the longest 3 months of Lily's life. Every video call felt charged with electricity. Every message carried layers of meaning. Her parents noticed something different about Lily but couldn't quite put their finger on what. She seemed lighter somehow, happier, more at peace. Her mother asked during a weekend visit home, "You're glowing, honey. Did something happen?" Lily just smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say I'm excited about the future." Lily finished her senior thesis on Viking-age women's roles in Norse society with highest honors. She was offered a spot in a prestigious graduate program starting in the fall, which she deferred for a year, saying she wanted to travel and gain more research experience first. What she didn't tell anyone was that she wanted time to figure out her relationship with Lars, without the pressure of school. Graduation day arrived in May, sunny and perfect. Lily walked across that stage to receive her diploma, her parents cheering in the crowd. And somewhere she knew Lars was watching via the live stream the university provided, just as proud as if he'd been there in person. That evening, after the ceremony and celebration dinner with her family, Lily got a message from Lars. "Congratulations, graduate. You did it. Can I see you tomorrow?" Her heart raced as she typed back, "Yes, come to my parents' house for dinner. It's time to tell them." Lars's response was a simple thumbs up, but she could imagine the nervousness he must be feeling. They'd agreed that they needed her parents' support, or at least their understanding, before moving forward. Tomorrow would be the day that everything either came together or fell apart. That night, Lily told her parents that Lars was coming to dinner and that they needed to talk about something important. Her mother's eyes went wide. "Lily, what's going on?" Lily took a deep breath. "Just wait until tomorrow, please. Lars and I will explain everything together." Her father looked concerned but nodded. "All right, we'll hear you both out." Lily barely slept that night, running through scenarios in her head. Would her parents be angry? Disappointed? Supportive? Would they forbid her from seeing Lars? She was 22 and could make her own choices, but she didn't want to lose her family over this. As dawn broke through her bedroom window, she looked at the wooden sword Lars had given her 17 years ago. The promise she'd made as a child was about to be tested in the real world. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 p.m. Lily had been watching the clock all day, her stomach in knots. She opened the door to find Lars standing there, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen him before. He wore nice jeans and a button-down shirt instead of his usual casual wear, his beard neatly trimmed. He was holding a bouquet of flowers for her mother and a bottle of wine for her father, old-fashioned gestures that made Lily smile despite her anxiety. "Ready for this?" she whispered as he stepped inside. Lars gave her a look that was equal parts terrified and determined. "No, but let's do it anyway." They walked into the dining room where her parents were waiting. the table already set for dinner. Her mother took the flowers with a polite but cautious smile. Her father shook Lars's hand, his grip firm and assessing. Dinner was awkward at first, everyone making small talk about the weather, Lily's graduation, Lars's latest woodworking project. Finally, Lily's father put down his fork and looked directly at Lars. "All right, enough dancing around it. Lily said you two needed to talk to us about something important. What's going on?" Lily and Lars exchanged a glance and he nodded at her. Let her take the lead. "Mom, Dad," Lily began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I need to tell you something that you've probably suspected for a while now. Lars and I have developed feelings for each other. Real feelings. We want to pursue a relationship, but we wanted to talk to you first because we respect you and value your opinion." The silence that followed felt endless. Her mother was the first to speak, her voice carefully controlled. "How long has this been going on?" Lars cleared his throat. "In terms of us acknowledging our feelings to each other, only a few months. But I'd be lying if I said I haven't been struggling with complicated feelings for longer than that. I tried to fight them. I even dated someone else to try to prove to myself that I could move on. But I can't lie anymore. Not to myself, not to Lily, and not to you." Lily's father's face had gone red. "You're 48 years old. She's 22. Do you understand how this looks?" Lars met his gaze directly, not backing down. "I do. Believe me, I've thought about nothing else for years. The age gap, the way we met, what people will say. I've considered all of it. And I've spent years trying to convince myself this was wrong. But sir, with all due respect, I love your daughter. I've watched her grow from that scared 5-year-old into this incredible woman. And I love everything about who she's become." It was the first time Lars had said those words out loud, and Lily felt tears spring to her eyes. Her mother noticed and handed her a napkin, her own eyes glistening. "Lily, honey, you have to understand our concern. This man has been part of your life since you were a child. How can you be sure your feelings aren't just because you've idealized him for so long?" "Because I spent 3 years in college dating other people, Mom," Lily said firmly. "I tried to move on. I tried to convince myself it was just a childhood crush. But every person I met I compared to Lars. Not because I meant to, but because he set a standard for how I deserve to be treated. He listens to me. He challenges me intellectually. He respects my dreams and encourages my independence. And yes, I love him. I've loved him for as long as I can remember." Her father stood up abruptly, and for a moment Lily thought he was going to throw Lars out. Instead, he paced to the window, his back to them. "When Lily was 5, he said, his voice rough, I trusted you with my daughter. You were kind to her when she was lost and scared. You could have been a creep, but you weren't. You were decent. And for 17 years, you've been nothing but appropriate, respectful, and good to her. That's the only reason I'm not throwing you out of my house right now." He turned back to face them. "But I need to know, and you better be honest with me, Lars. Did you groom my daughter? Did you spend all these years building a relationship with a child so you could pursue her when she was legal?" The accusation hung in the air like poison. Lars's face went pale, but he didn't look away. "No," he said, his voice shaking but clear. "I swear to you, on everything I hold sacred, no. When Lily was a child, she was just a child to me, someone I cared about as a friend, almost like a niece. I never looked at her that way. It wasn't until she was in college, already an adult making her own choices, that I started having feelings I didn't know what to do with, and even then I tried to push them away. I told her to date other people, to experience life, to not wait for me. I dated other people myself. I've done everything I could to not act on these feelings." Lily's mother spoke up, her voice softer now. "We've watched your relationship with our daughter for 17 years. We've read every letter, monitored every conversation, and I hate to admit it, but you've been nothing but appropriate. You never asked to meet her alone when she was young. You never said anything inappropriate. You maintained boundaries that many adults wouldn't have. That's the only reason we're still sitting here having this conversation. But that doesn't mean we're comfortable with this." Her father added, "Lily, you're our only child. We want you to be happy, but we also want to protect you. What kind of life would you have with a man old enough to be your father? What happens when you're 40 and he's 66? When you want to have kids and he's too old to keep up with them?" Lars nodded slowly. "Those are all fair questions. And honestly, they're questions I've asked myself 1,000 times. I can't promise you a perfect future or that the age gap won't present challenges, but I can promise you that I will spend every day trying to be worthy of your daughter. I can promise that I'll encourage her career, support her dreams, and never hold her back from becoming everything she's meant to be. I can promise that if we do this, we'll do it right. No rushing into marriage, no pressure to have kids before she's ready, no sacrificing her ambitions for mine. The conversation continued for 2 more hours. Lily's parents asked every hard question they could think of. What would they tell extended family? How would they handle public judgment? Where would they live? What if Lily changed her mind in a few years? What if Lars got sick as he aged? Through it all, Lars answered honestly, never making promises he couldn't keep, but also never backing down from his feelings. Finally, Lily's mother sighed deeply. I can't say we're thrilled about this. The age gap concerns me, and I worry about what people will say. But Lily, you're an adult. And Lars, you've proven over 17 years that you're a man of integrity. If this is really what you both want, we won't stand in your way. But we will be watching. And if you ever hurt our daughter, Lars, there won't be a place on earth you can hide from us. Lars nodded solemnly. I wouldn't expect anything less. And for what it's worth, thank you for hearing us out. I know this isn't easy for you. Lily's father came over and put his hand on Lars's shoulder, his expression serious. Take care of her. She's everything to us. Lars's voice was thick with emotion when he replied, She's everything to me too. After dinner, Lily walked Lars to his car. The night air was cool and stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, Lars said, leaning against his truck. Lily smiled up at him. You were amazing. Thank you for being honest with them, for not making excuses or trying to minimize their concerns. Lars reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The first time he'd touched her in a way that wasn't strictly platonic. The gesture was small but intimate, and it made Lily's heart race. So what happens now? She asked softly. Lars smiled. That warm smile she'd loved since she was 5 years old. Now we take it slow. We do this right. We build something real, not based on letters and video calls, but on actual time together. No rushing, no pressure, just us figuring out if this can really work. It will work, Lily said with certainty. I've been waiting 17 years for this. I can wait a little longer to do it right. Lars laughed and pulled her into a hug, holding her close. You're incredible, you know that? That 5-year-old girl who grabbed onto my leg and declared she'd marry me someday. She had no idea what she was promising. But I'm so glad she did. As Lily watched Lars drive away that night, she felt something settle in her chest. A peace she'd been searching for her whole life. The hard part was over. They'd told her parents, laid all the cards on the table, and committed to making this work despite the obstacles. What came next wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth having ever was. She touched the wooden sword Lars had given her all those years ago, now sitting on her dresser, and smiled. Some promises, it turns out, were always meant to be kept. The first 6 months of their relationship were both wonderful and challenging. Lars and Lily took things slowly, going on proper dates, learning each other's quirks and habits in person rather than through screens. They faced judgment as expected. Some people at the coffee shop would stare when they held hands. An old friend of Lily's mother made a snide comment at the grocery store. A few people unfriended Lily on social media after she posted a photo with Lars, but they also found unexpected support. The owner of Lars's favorite woodworking supply shop, an elderly man named George, told Lars he'd been with his own wife for 40 years despite a 15-year age gap. People always talked, George said, but we just loved each other and ignored the noise. You'll be fine if the love is real. Lily's best friend Katie, after meeting Lars in person, admitted, Okay, I get it now. He's not what I expected. He actually listens when you talk, and the way he looks at you. Yeah, I get it. Lars introduced Lily to his world properly, his workshop where he created beautiful furniture, the Renaissance Fair community who'd known him for years, his volunteer work teaching kids about history. Lily introduced Lars to her academic circle, taking him to a university lecture where she presented her research. Watching her command the room with confidence and intelligence, Lars felt a surge of pride and love so strong it almost hurt. They talked about everything, their fears, their dreams, their doubts. Lars admitted he worried about holding Lily back from opportunities that might come her way. What if you get offered a research position overseas? What if you want to travel extensively for your work? Lily took his hands in hers. Then we figure it out together. That's what partnership means, Lars, and honestly, having someone who believes in my work and wants me to succeed is the opposite of holding me back. About 8 months into their relationship, they took their first trip together, to Norway, to the archaeological site where Lily had worked during her summer program. Lars had never been to the homeland of his beloved Vikings, and seeing his face light up as they explored ancient settlements was worth every penny. They hiked through fjords, visited museums, and spent evenings in cozy cafes talking about history and life in the future. One evening, as they watched the sun set over a Norwegian harbor, Lars turned to Lily with unusual seriousness. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." Lily felt her heart speed up. "What is it?" Lars took a deep breath. "Are you happy? Really happy? Because if there's any part of you that feels like you're missing out on experiences you should be having, or if you feel pressured by that promise you made as a kid, I need to know. I love you too much to trap you in something you're not completely sure about." Lily looked at him, this kind, thoughtful man who'd been part of her life for so long, and felt absolute certainty. "Lars, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Yes, we have challenges. Yes, people judge us. But when I'm with you, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. That 5-year-old girl who promised to marry you wasn't being silly or impulsive. She was seeing something real, something that would take years to fully understand but was always true." The proposal came a year and a half into their relationship, back at the Renaissance Fair where they'd first met 18 years earlier. Lars had planned it carefully, coordinating with the fair organizers and Lily's parents. He set up a special demonstration in the Viking encampment, teaching kids about Norse mythology just like he always did. Lily was in the audience, watching him with a smile. Then Lars called her up to help with the demonstration. "I need a volunteer," he announced to the crowd. "Someone brave enough to take on a Viking challenge." Lily came forward, playing along, not suspecting anything. Lars handed her a wooden sword. Not just any sword, but the very one he'd given her when she was 5 years old, which she'd brought to show him. 18 years ago, Lars said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "A little girl took this sword from me and made me a promise. She said she'd marry me when she grew up. I laughed it off as kid talk, but she never forgot. That little girl grew up to be the most amazing woman I've ever known. Brilliant, kind, brave, and stubborn enough to wait for what she wanted." He knelt down on one knee, just like he had 18 years ago, and pulled out a ring he'd crafted himself. A delicate silver band with Norse knot designs. "Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've been waiting for you too. Will you marry me?" The crowd had gone completely silent. Lily was crying, nodding before she could even speak. "Yes," she finally managed. "Yes, yes, yes." The crowd erupted in cheers as Lars stood and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around just like he had when she was 5 and sitting on his shoulders. Someone in the crowd had captured the whole thing on video, and by the next day it had gone viral on social media. Thousands of people shared their story, some critical but mostly supportive. Comments poured in. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. True love waits. Who cares about age when you have this kind of connection?" Even a few news outlets picked up the story, wanting to interview the couple who'd promised to marry his child in Viking, and actually did it. The wedding planning was a family affair. Lily's mother, who'd been skeptical at first, became Lars's biggest ally in planning the perfect day. They decided to get married at the Renaissance Fair exactly 1 year after the proposal, 19 years after they'd first met. It would be a blend of historical elements and modern touches, intimate but meaningful. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. Lily wore a dress she'd designed herself, inspired by Norse bridal traditions but updated for her style. Lars wore his finest Viking costume, the one he reserved for special occasions. The aisle was lined with friends from both the historical reenactment community and Lily's academic world, 2 parts of their lives coming together. Lily's father walked her down the aisle, and she could see tears in his eyes. "I'm trusting him with you," he whispered. "He better be worth it." Lily squeezed his arm. "He is, Dad. He really is." When they reached the front, her father shook Lars's hand, holding it a moment longer than necessary. "Take care of my girl," he said gruffly. Lars nodded solemnly. "Always." The ceremony included readings from Norse poetry and modern love poems. Their friend from the medieval history club officiated, telling the story of how they'd met and how that childhood promise had somehow, impossibly, come true. When it came time for vows, Lars went first. "Lily," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "When you were 5 years old, you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. You saw someone worth waiting for, worth believing in. You've taught me that love doesn't follow a timeline or care about what society thinks. You've shown me that the best things in life are worth waiting for. I promise to spend every day of our marriage being worthy of the faith you've had in me since you were a little girl lost at a fair. I promise to support your dreams, celebrate your victories, and be there through every challenge. I promise to love you not just today but every day for the rest of my life." Lily was crying, but she smiled through her tears as she began her own vows. "Lars," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "when I was 5 years old, I made you a promise. Everyone thought it was cute kid talk, something I'd forget about by the next week. But I never forgot. Not when I was 8 and writing you letters about my goldfish. Not when I was 13 and asking you for advice about mean kids at school. Not when I was 18 and realized my feelings went deeper than friendship. And not now at 23 standing here as your wife. You've been my hero, my friend, my mentor, and now my partner. You never rushed me, never pressured me, never took advantage of my trust. You let me grow and become my own person before we could be together. That's real love. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our dreams. I promise to never take for granted the patience you showed me. I promise to love you through every season of life, every challenge, every joy. I kept my promise from when I was 5. This is me keeping it again now, and I'll keep keeping it for the rest of our lives." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Even the tough Viking reenactors were wiping their faces. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and when Lars kissed Lily, the crowd cheered like they'd just witnessed something magical. Because in a way they had. The reception was held in the fairgrounds with long wooden tables, torches lighting up the evening, and a mix of medieval and modern music. Lily's mother gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. "When my daughter was 5, she came home from the fair with a wooden sword and a crazy story about marrying a Viking. My husband and I thought it was adorable but meaningless. Shows what we know. Lars, you've proven us wrong in the best possible way. You've been patient, respectful, and loving. You've earned not just Lily's heart but ours too. Welcome to the family officially." Lars's best friend from the woodworking community spoke next, sharing stories about how Lars had talked about Lily over the years. "He tried to pretend it was just a nice friendship," his friend said with a grin. "But I could see it in his face whenever her name came up. He'd light up like a kid at Christmas. I'm just glad he finally stopped fighting it and let himself be happy."